Hello and welcome, wherever you are watching from tonight, whether that is here in the States or Canada or the United Kingdom or Australia or somewhere I have never been. I am glad you are here. Having spent years studying the research on how food acts on the aging body, I want to tell you something that surprises almost everyone who asks me about their eyes. Nobody ever told you what to feed them. You were told to wear sunglasses. You were told to rest them. You were told eventually that you would need reading glasses and that this was simply age. But almost nobody sat you down and explained that the retina is metabolically one of the hungriest tissues in your entire body, and that what you put on your plate reaches it every single day. Before we go one step further, let me be very clear with you. If you have been diagnosed with glaucoma, macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, cataracts, or any condition affecting your eyes, or if you are taking medication for any of them, please talk with your own eye doctor before you change anything about how you eat. Nothing in this video replaces the person who can actually examine your eyes. This is general education about food, and that is all it is. Now, here is the number that made me want to record this. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, approximately 12 million people aged 40 and older in the United States have some form of vision impairment. 12 million. And a very large share of that is age-related, meaning it develops slowly, quietly, over decades, in people who felt perfectly fine right up until they did not. Here is what makes the eye different from almost every other organ we have talked about on this channel. At the very back of your eye, there is a small patch of tissue called the macula. It is responsible for your sharp central vision, the vision you are using right now to look at my face. And that macula contains a yellow pigment. That pigment is not made by your body. Let me say that again, because it is the single most important sentence in this video. Your body cannot manufacture the pigment that protects your central vision. Every molecule of it has to arrive through your mouth. The National Eye Institute, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, ran one of the largest nutrition studies in the history of eye research, called the Age-Related Eye Disease Study, and its follow-up, known as AREDS2. Those studies looked specifically at nutrients from food and their relationship to age-related macular changes. The findings reshaped how the entire field thinks about diet and vision. So tonight, I am going to give you 6 foods, counting down from number 6 to number 1, that supply exactly the compounds that tissue is asking for. And I will tell you now, number 1 is not a supplement, it is not exotic, and it costs about $2. Most people walk past it every single week. Stay with me through all 6, because the last one carries more of what your macula needs than any other food on this list. Before I start, do me a favor. Tell me in the comments below how old you are, and whether you have noticed yet that you need more light to read than you used to. That one small change tells you more than you would think. And because so many of you have asked me to put all of this in one place, I have. In just a moment, a code will appear on your screen. Scan it with your phone camera, and it will take you to the 90-year blueprint, which gathers everything I teach about eating for the aging body into one simple guide. It is my gift to you. There is nothing to buy. Take it, read it slowly, and keep it somewhere you will actually look at it again. Now let me explain how I want you to listen to this list, because it is not a shopping list. It is a mechanism list. Almost every video you have ever seen about eyes and food gives you a name and moves on. Eat carrots, eat fish. That is not teaching, that is a slogan. And slogans do not change anybody's habits, because the moment life gets busy, you forget them. So for every single one of these 6, I am going to do 3 things in the same order. First, I will name the actual compound doing the work. Second, I will explain what that compound physically does inside your eye in plain language. And third, I will tell you exactly how to get it onto your plate this week in a form you will actually eat. If you understand the mechanism, you do not have to remember the rule. You will simply know why it matters. And knowing why is what makes a habit survive a hard week. Let us begin at number 6. Number 6 is eggs. The compounds here are lutein and zeaxanthin, and these are the 2 carotenoids that make up that yellow macular pigment I described a moment ago. They are the reason this list exists. Here is what they physically do. Light entering your eye is not gentle. The high-energy blue end of the spectrum scatters and carries enough energy to stress the delicate photoreceptor cells packed into your macula. Lutein and zeaxanthin sit in that tissue as a filter, absorbing a portion of that high-energy light before it reaches the cells behind them, and they also act as antioxidants in a tissue with an extremely high metabolic rate. Think of them as built-in sunglasses that live inside your eye, except you have to eat them. Now, why eggs specifically when dark greens contain far more lutein by weight? Because of the fat. Lutein and zeaxanthin are fat-soluble, which means they need dietary fat present to be absorbed well. An egg yolk delivers these carotenoids already suspended in fat, which is why research on carotenoid bioavailability has repeatedly found the lutein in egg yolk to be absorbed unusually efficiently, despite the modest amount present. It is not the quantity in the food, it is the quantity that reaches your bloodstream. The National Institutes of Health Office of Dietary Supplements notes that eggs also supply zinc, and zinc is required to move vitamin A from the liver to the retina. Without adequate zinc, that transport slows down. How to add this to your plate. 2 whole eggs, and I do mean whole, several mornings a week. The yolk is where every one of these compounds lives, so a white-only omelet gives you almost none of this benefit. If you have been told to watch your cholesterol, that is exactly the conversation to have with your own doctor rather than with a video. Number 5 is oily fish, and I am thinking specifically of salmon, sardines, and mackerel. The compound is an omega-3 fatty acid called DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. Here is what most people never learn. DHA is not merely helpful to the retina, it is a structural building material of it. The membranes of your photoreceptor cells, the rods and cones that convert light into the signal your brain reads as vision, are extraordinarily rich in DHA. In fact, the retina holds one of the highest concentrations of DHA of any tissue in the human body, and the American Heart Association has long recommended 2 servings of fish per week for adults. That flexibility in the membrane is what allows the light-sensing molecules embedded in it to change shape quickly, which is precisely what vision is at the molecular level. There is a second mechanism worth knowing. Omega-3s are involved in the function of the meibomian glands along the rim of your eyelid, which produce the oil layer of your tear film. When that oil layer is poor, tears evaporate too fast, and you get the gritty, tired, burning eyes that so many people over 60 describe to me and then dismiss as nothing. How to add this to your plate. 2 servings of oily fish per week. Tinned sardines are inexpensive, they require no cooking at all, and because you eat the small soft bones, you also get calcium. If you genuinely will not eat fish, talk to your doctor about whether an algae-based omega-3 is sensible for you, since algae is where the fish get it in the first place. Number 4 is sweet potato, and with it the whole family of deep orange vegetables, including carrots, butternut squash, and pumpkin. The compound is beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A. Now here is the mechanism, and it is one of the most elegant in all of human biology. Inside your rod cells, the ones responsible for seeing in dim light, sits a light-sensitive pigment called rhodopsin. Vitamin A is a required component of rhodopsin. When a photon strikes it, rhodopsin changes shape and fires a signal to your brain, and then it must be regenerated before it can respond again. That regeneration cycle consumes vitamin A continuously. The World Health Organization has documented this for decades. The very first symptom of vitamin A deficiency, recognized for well over a century, is difficulty seeing in dim light. Your rods cannot rebuild their pigment fast enough. So when you find yourself needing brighter and brighter light to read, that is worth paying attention to rather than shrugging off. I want to be careful and honest here. In a well-fed population, outright vitamin A deficiency is uncommon, and eating more carrots will not give a person with normal levels superhuman night vision. That claim has followed us since wartime propaganda, and it was never true. What is true is that this system runs on a steady supply, and many older adults eat very few deeply colored vegetables. How to add this to your plate. one baked sweet potato, skin on, with a little olive oil or butter. The fat is not optional. Beta-carotene is fat-soluble, like the carotenoids in number 6, and eating these vegetables completely fat-free measurably reduces how much you absorb. We are halfway. If this is the first time anybody has explained the actual mechanism to you, rather than just handing you a list, please subscribe, because this is the only kind of health video I make, and it helps more than you know. And if you are finding this useful, tell me in the comments below which number has surprised you most so far. I read them. Now, number 3, and this is where the antioxidants come in. Number 3 is red bell peppers, and alongside them, citrus fruit, kiwi, and strawberries. The compound is vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Here is the mechanism, and it centers on a part of the eye we have not discussed yet. The lens of your eye is made of tightly packed proteins arranged in an almost crystalline order, and that order is what makes it transparent. Those proteins are not replaced over your lifetime the way most proteins are. The ones you have are largely the ones you were born with, sitting there for decades, absorbing light and oxidative stress the entire time. When they become damaged and clumped together, the lens begins to cloud. That clouding is a cataract. Now, the fluid surrounding your lens contains a concentration of vitamin C many times higher than what is in your bloodstream. Your body is deliberately, actively pumping it there and holding it there. That is not an accident. It is spending energy to keep a powerful antioxidant right next to the one structure in your body that cannot repair itself by replacement. I am not going to tell you that eating peppers prevents cataracts, because the honest scientific answer is that the evidence on diet and cataract formation is mixed and still being worked out. What I will tell you is that the design of the eye tells you what it values, and it clearly values vitamin C. How to add this to your plate. According to United States Department of Agriculture food composition data, one raw red bell pepper contains roughly 150 milligrams of vitamin C, substantially more than an orange, and vitamin C degrades with heat, so raw matters. Slice one and eat it with lunch. Number 2 is almonds, and with them sunflower seeds and hazelnuts. The compound is vitamin E, specifically alpha-tocopherol. Here is why this belongs so high on the list. Go back to number 5 for a moment. I told you the retina is one of the most DHA-rich tissues in the body. Now, polyunsaturated fats like DHA are chemically fragile. They oxidize. And you have packed an enormous quantity of them into a tissue that is bathed in light and consuming oxygen at a furious rate. That is, biochemically speaking, a difficult place to keep fats intact. Vitamin E is the primary fat-soluble antioxidant that sits inside those very membranes and interrupts the chain reaction of lipid oxidation before it can propagate. So numbers 5 and 2 are a pair. One supplies the structural fat, the other protects it. This is exactly why vitamin E was included alongside the carotenoids and zinc in the National Eye Institute's AREDS formulations rather than being studied in isolation. How to add this to your plate. A small handful of almonds, roughly 23, gives you about 7 milligrams of vitamin E, which is close to half the 15 milligram daily amount the National Institutes of Health lists for adults. Keep them somewhere visible, because this is a food people buy and then forget in a cupboard. And choose plain ones, not the honey-roasted version, which is largely sugar. And number 1 is kale, and with it spinach, collard greens, and Swiss chard. We have come back around to lutein and zeaxanthin, the 2 compounds we started with at number 6, because this is where they live in the greatest quantity. Here is what makes dark leafy greens singular. Nothing else in the ordinary food supply concentrates these 2 carotenoids the way they do, and researchers can actually measure the result. There is a quantity called macular pigment optical density, which is essentially a measurement of how much of that protective yellow pigment is packed into your macula. It can be measured in a living person, and the Mayo Clinic and the American Academy of Ophthalmology both point to leafy greens as a dietary source of these 2 carotenoids. And dietary intake of lutein and zeaxanthin is associated with that density. In other words, this is not a vague wellness claim. It is a food you eat, arriving at a specific tissue where its accumulation can be measured. This is also why I said number one costs about $2. A bunch of kale or a bag of spinach is one of the least expensive items in the entire produce section, and it carries more of what the back of your eye is asking for than anything else on this list. How to add it, and this is the part that decides whether you actually do it. Do not try to eat a large salad of raw kale, because most people quit within a week. Instead, take a large handful of spinach and drop it into something hot that you were already making. Soup, scrambled eggs, pasta sauce, a stir fry. It collapses to almost nothing in about 60 seconds. And add fat, olive oil, butter, cheese, because we are back to fat-soluble absorption again. One more practical note, because people ask. Frozen spinach is entirely acceptable here, and in some ways better, since it is picked and frozen quickly, and you are not racing a bag of fresh leaves that wilts by Thursday. Keep a bag in the freezer and add a handful to whatever is already on the stove. The best version of this habit is the one that survives a week when you are tired. And nothing survives like something already in your freezer. Now let me pull all 6 together, because the reason I ordered them this way is that they are not 6 separate items. They are one system. Start with the pigment. Kale at number 1 and eggs at number 6 both deliver lutein and zeaxanthin. The greens deliver the raw quantity, and the egg yolk delivers a smaller amount in a fat-rich package that your body absorbs efficiently. Together, they supply and deliver the filter that sits in your macula. Now the structure. Oily fish at number 5 supplies DHA, which is the physical building material of your photoreceptor membranes. Now the protection of that structure. Almonds at number 2 supply vitamin E, the antioxidant that lives inside those fatty membranes and keeps that fragile DHA from oxidizing. Number 5 builds it, number 2 defends it. Now the working chemistry. Sweet potato at number 4 supplies beta-carotene for vitamin A, which your rods consume continuously to regenerate the pigment that lets you see in dim light. And zinc, which we met in the eggs, is the escort that carries that vitamin A from your liver to your retina. And finally, the lens. Red peppers at number 3 supply the vitamin C that your body concentrates in the fluid around the one structure in your eye that cannot renew itself. Do you see the shape of it? Supply, deliver, build, protect, operate, defend. 6 foods, one system. That is why taking a single one of these in isolation and expecting a result is a misunderstanding of how the tissue works. The eye is not asking you for a nutrient, it is asking you for a pattern of eating. And the honest good news is that the pattern is unremarkable. Greens, eggs, fish, an orange vegetable, a pepper, a handful of nuts. That is a normal week of food. Now, I would be doing you a disservice if I stopped at food, because food is not the whole of it. 3 other things matter, and they matter a great deal. The first is blood sugar. The retina is fed by some of the smallest blood vessels in the body, and sustained high blood sugar damages small vessels first. This is why diabetic retinopathy is a leading cause of vision loss. If your blood sugar is not well controlled, that will outweigh every food on this list, and that is a conversation for your doctor. The second is blood pressure. Same vessels, same logic. There is also light itself. The eye is the one organ you deliberately point at the sun, and ultraviolet exposure accumulates across a lifetime in both the lens and the retina. A pair of sunglasses that genuinely blocks ultraviolet light is not a fashion decision at 60. It is protective equipment, and it costs less than a single bottle of the supplements people buy instead. Wear them outdoors, in winter as well as summer, because snow and water both reflect a great deal of what you are trying to avoid. And a word about screens, since I am asked constantly. Long hours at a screen have not been shown to cause permanent damage to the retina. What they reliably do is reduce your blink rate, sometimes by half, which dries the eye surface and produces exactly the burning, gritty fatigue people then blame on their vision failing. The remedy is unglamorous. Every 20 minutes, look at something roughly 20 feet away for about 20 seconds and blink deliberately while you do it. The third is smoking, and I will not soften this. Smoking is the most firmly established, modifiable risk factor for age-related macular degeneration that we know of. If you smoke, stopping does more for your eyes than everything else in this video combined. And then there are the two simple things I want you to actually do. First, get a dilated eye examination on the schedule your eye doctor recommends. Glaucoma, in particular, can take a meaningful amount of peripheral vision before you notice anything is wrong, because your brain fills in the gap. It is silent by design. Second, cover one eye, then the other, and look at a straight line, a door frame, or a window edge. If that line looks wavy or bent with one eye and straight with the other, do not wait and do not finish this video. Call your eye doctor. That is a sign worth taking seriously today. One more honest note. You have all noticed that nutrition advice seems to flip every few years. There is a reason for that, and it is not that scientists are careless. Nutrition is genuinely difficult to study in humans over decades. So when I tell you the mechanism rather than only the rule, I am giving you the part that tends to hold up. I want to say something plainly before I let you go. Of all the things people tell me they fear about growing older, losing their sight sits near the top, above almost everything else, because it is not really about vision. It is about reading your own mail, driving to see your grandchildren, recognizing a face across a room. Independence. You cannot control everything about that. Nobody can, and I would never pretend otherwise. But the thing you can control, you can start tonight, and it costs about $2. If you want all of this written down, that code is on your screen again now, and the link is in the description below as well. The 90-year blueprint is my gift to you. Take it. And once more, because it matters. If you have any diagnosed eye condition, or you take medication for one, or you have diabetes, please speak with your own eye doctor before changing your diet, and keep every appointment they have given you. This video is general education about food. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not treatment for anyone's particular situation. No video can replace a real examination by a licensed physician who knows your history and can look inside your eyes. So, scan the code or use the link in the description and take the 90-year blueprint. Then start with the greens this week. That is the one I would begin with. Subscribe if you would like me to keep explaining the mechanism rather than handing you a list, because that is the whole point of this channel. And tell me down in the comments which of the 6 is already on your plate and which one you have been ignoring for years. I read every one of them, and I will see you in the next video.